Hey, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
How's it going?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm well. Excited for this year. Big things happening.
Like what?
Um, Nothing politically.
hmm
I don't think there's any change that we can really talk about.
Right. Nothing politically is happening in 2025.
Uh, let's just start with the big news from Facebook, actually, that they are reverting to basically X's, Twitter's,
Community
uh,
note.
yeah, community note system for censorship for content moderation.
hmm
Seems like a good idea. Obviously the old system was rife with an uneven application of constantly changing rules that no one could understand,
hmm
that often ended up censoring truthful information in the name of protecting us from misinformation and hate speech and what have you. But there is part of this announcement that just feels kind of gross to me, that it's like, oh, okay, a week and a half before the inauguration of the new Republican president, they're going to make a politically timed thing just to pander.
Right.
Just like 4 years ago when Biden came in, they made promises to do more censorship. It's like whoever's in office, they'll just kind of change their entire content
Right.
moderation system. There's no first principles. There's no kind of foundational thing here. It's just kind of pander to whoever's in power. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe that's not the main point, but that's kind of it leaves me with a weird
I
reaction.
mean, it's substantive. I remember when I used to work for the labor movement, our kind of our rap with workers, because it was the employer would always as people started agitating for a union, the employer would start to offer raises and address grievances that had been on the table for years, offer all these perks. And we were like, they can take it away as easily as they can give it. It doesn't mean anything until you get in a contract. Like, obviously they're doing it now just to bribe you away from voting for the union, but it means nothing if it's not in a contract. By the same token, it's like, and our mutual friend Zed pointed this out, that if Trump drops his lawsuits in response to this, then it's like, okay, well, then do they just flip back to censorship once the Democrat gets in control? Like,
Yeah,
this
there's
needs
no
a
permanency.
legislative solution. Yeah.
No, I think that union comparison's extremely apt. It's like, okay, here's just they're dangling the keys in front of a political audience that's easily distracted
hmm
by, you know, nice sounding promises. Who knows if Zuckerberg's even being honest? Like, I got a feeling that a lot of content that is spicy around Ukraine or Israel or other big hot topics is still going to get censored. Now, I might be wrong about that,
Yeah.
but I
I
don't
mean,
know.
I got, this is just totally intuitive, but like the sense that I got watching the video is that while I don't trust Zuckerberg at all for all the reasons why we've mentioned, it did seem like this was something that he wanted to say for a long time that he couldn't say, and now he's liberated to say it. I mean, to the extent that the guy shows any emotion at all, it's kind of hard to read because he's like a robot. But it's like, but just the phrasing of it, it just kind of felt like, he was like, well, these fact checkers are politically biased. Like, he's probably thought that for a long time. I don't think he wanted to do these measures that he put into place under the Biden administration. I think he did so grudgingly, but he did it. I don't care that it's grudging. That doesn't exonerate him. But did seem kind of like, like he was taking a sigh of relief in being able to make this announcement that they're not going to censor anymore. But who knows?
I mean, it's also just in a list of other things. I mean, every day you're hearing new news about various tech companies. Tim Cook, CEO of Apple, giving $1 million to the inauguration. Amazon forking over $40 million to
Yeah.
Melania Trump for a new documentary, taking the exact same playbook of that they used to kind of provide what seemed like quasi bribes to the Obama family with the Amazon, Spotify, Netflix deals that they received. Now that just gets duplicated and given to the Trumps, and it's like no one has really uh, you know a platform to criticize this because it happens to both parties. But this is just the way that the powerful elites show fealty to a new emperor. Like
Yeah.
these are the rituals that we have to engage in.
But I do think that there's something significant that sets this apart from 2016 insofar as like these tech oligarchs who are now just pandering to Trump were not in a position to do so in 2016 when it was like they were forced to sort of join the resistance. And forced is putting it too strongly. I'm sure a lot of them felt very sincerely, that this was the end of democracy or whatever. But it's sort of like it does. I find it telling that they're going back to treating him like a normal president, which is to say, just kissing the ass of whichever party happens to be in power, and not feeling like, oh, we have to make a big political statement in order to, keep our labor force and keep all our software engineers from quitting.
Right, but is normal even better? Like,
It's not better.
doing the normal bribery that they would have done if Hillary had won, if Romney would have won, that they did with Obama, that they did with Bush. I think there's a part of me that's relieved again. That's like, all right, we're not going through the song and dance of the fake Silicon Valley resistance,
Right.
but now we're just going through the normal American bribery. Like,
Yeah, no,
okay, all right,
it's not better. It's just different. It's like, they are now once again controlled by just normal monetary business incentives instead of by, whatever's in the cultural flash pan for their employees. It's like economic versus instead of cultural capital.
I mean, it is just so different. I haven't seen any significant protests, movements, any significant activist actions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Democratic Party is basically dead. There's a DNC race and nobody cares. There's no even like figurehead at the head of the party. Any kind of Democratic governor or senator tries to do something to make news, no one cares.
They certify the election unanimously, right?
Yeah, and it's like, all right. I mean, this is good, but in one sense, but also it's like, okay, now we're in kind of a weird uniparty moment where it's like, I also like political competition. We need some pushback.
Yeah. I mean, one thing back on the censorship thing is that I think it's a positive development, whatever the motives are, that Facebook is backing off of censorship, goes without saying, and emulating Twitter's community notes. But I do find it a little ironic because Twitter is now becoming, I think, much more censorious, and I hope that Facebook doesn't follow them too closely, because now Twitter has gone from being, in my opinion, the last regime, we were both in the room for the Twitter files, this censorious, ideologically censorious regime, to now just an arbitrarily, personally censorious one party regime from Elon Musk.
Well, look, I mean, there are some, we'll get to it, H-1B in a second, but this is the other big kind of obvious fissure, which we haven't hit yet, but we will hit very soon, which is speech and the government. What happens when there are Trump whistleblowers, Tesla or SpaceX whistleblowers, when there are people that air controversial speech within the conservative movement or within the federal government that is unflattering to Trump, unflattering to Elon Musk and others? How are they still going to champion free speech?
Right.
From the experience of just the last few weeks of this kind of weird Adrian Dittman thing, which was started out as like a joke, and it's now like it's apparently just some super fan who imitates Elon Musk and is also his friend. I don't know the exact story. I also don't really care. But what's important here is that Elon's now been so disturbed by some of the actual reporting on this that he's banned links to actual credible journalism around this social media controversy. And then not looking good.
Yeah, and he kicked off that guy who I've seen some of his tweets later, and he's not the kind of guy who I would want to be following, but nevertheless, it was just a guy who posted I guess it was a fake Reddit image, like screenshot an image of an Elon tweet that made him look like a hypocrite on the H-1B visa thing. And I guess the tweet was fake, but this guy didn't know it. He was just like picking up something that he saw on Reddit. And he said, like, when Elon called him out, and then he said, I wasn't aware that this was fake. And he was like clearly about to say, oh, sorry about that, I can take it down. And then Elon just banned him. And it's like, and then people came to his defense, being to Musk's defense, being like, well, it was a violation of the terms of service, which I just found so rich, because that was like, it's like the exact